Good morning. Thank you all so much for joining me today. These are crazy times, aren't they, right? Just when I thought, okay, I've got this COVID thing, I'm good, under control, kind of know what to expect, we're on the other side of the curve, it's all right, feeling a little calmer about what's coming, even though knowing it would be a new normal. And then everything hits, the terrible murder in Minneapolis, the riots, everything. And of course, it's unbelievably unsettling and upsetting for me, for everyone. And I think as an autism mom, I especially get triggered. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Heidi Rome, autism mom coach, founder of Spectrum Oasis, and the author of the recently released book, You Just Have to Love Me. That is based on a profound conversation that I had through typing with my autistic nonverbal son, Ethan. That conversation took place when he was 11. He's now 14. And as a result of my autism journey with Ethan, I view everything through the lens of autism, and as his mom, as his guide, and now as guide to so many of my sister autism moms, special needs moms, and really all moms, because all of us face very similar challenges. It's just that the autism ramps up the challenge and makes it more visible, brings it to the surface, but really every mom faces challenges with her kids. And I think what happened for me is that with everything going on, I got triggered because it brought up one of the many pain points of the autism journey, which is the vulnerability that we have, and our kids especially have, feeling helpless, feeling vulnerable, feeling like there is no safe place. Especially when it's not only about you and your own personal safety, but your child's safety. And when you have a special needs child, and I know you know this, that worry and concern lasts forever. Because for most of our kids, they may not ever achieve full independence and ability to advocate and protect themselves, or maybe even live on their own. I hope I'm wrong, but I expect that Ethan will always need heavy support in living his everyday life. So how vulnerable a human being he is, needing to rely on others. And when it feels like society and the structures that have been built up are falling apart or are shaky or unpredictable, my anxiety can really go up around that. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk with you about, is taking control back of those thoughts. The what if. Oh my God, what if this doesn't get better? What if everything falls apart? What if he's never protected? You know, when you spin off into the future, what if, what if, and you start worrying and you start to want to control everything. I mean, I'm speaking from my own experience. It's really important in those moments to stop and breathe. Notice what's going on around you. Recognize your thinking, recognize what's going on. And then you can take action around whatever that is. And you can plan for it. So this past weekend, I was just talking about this with someone who interviewed me about the book. And I was telling her that this past weekend, I and my husband and my older son had gone to a peaceful town protest a Black Lives Matter walk with our signs, wearing the masks, the social distancing thing. And I was holding a sign, Black Lives Matter. And about 6 feet away from me was an African American family with their signs. But in this case, their young son, who was about 17, around the same age as my own older son, he was wearing a sign, and it was a smaller one. He wasn't holding it. It was pinned to his shirt, and it said, "Don't I matter?" And my heart broke as a mother of, especially of the same age kid, that this young man had to even entertain the thought that, ask that question, don't I matter? As a fellow human being made in God's image, that thought had to even cross his mind was heartbreaking to me. And I said to him, I addressed him from across the 6 feet, and I said, I am so sorry that you need to wear that sign and walk here today. I am so sad about that. I wish it weren't true. And he was lovely, and he thanked me for reaching out to him, and his mom and I started talking. And part of why that was so heartbreaking to me, I saw my own older son. I also saw my younger son in his vulnerability. What's going to happen? How can I keep him safe? The same question every African American mother is asking: how do I keep my kids safe, my son safe? We autism moms, many of whom are African American, we autism moms also asking, how will I keep my child safe? I don't have a simple answer. What I can do, though, is say, one thing we can do is shift our focus on what we're looking at. It doesn't mean don't know what's going on. It doesn't mean be uninformed. But it does mean also notice, side by side with all the anger and hate and tumultuousness, side by side with that is love. Are people taking action? Are people standing up? One of the most moving things, the images I had seen this week that were, in the midst of everything that was just so heart-wrenching, was this beautiful image. It might have even been in Minneapolis where everything started or got sparked right now. And it was this image of these two groups of protesters, fellow protesters, Black Lives Matter groups. But one group was white, one was black, and I don't know what brought them to that place, but everybody was kneeling in prayer. And everyone was taking accountability for life, for any part of themselves that had contributed in any way to the state of affairs, because it doesn't mean that you were evil or were a racist, but just being part of a system, there's accountability for everything we've done or have not done, said or not said. And everyone there was doing that. And one white man sitting in the front of the line of people praying said, I am so sorry. I ask your forgiveness for all this hate and all this racism and anything I have ever done that said anything to you that you deserve this in any way, shape, or form. And one African American man stood up and said, I ask your forgiveness. I ask God's forgiveness for any time I have been angry and unforgiving and not seeing the hand stretched out to me. And it was the most, between the two, and everyone there was crying. Everyone was blessing each other. The love was just emanating in this time of darkness. It was the candle, it was the spark, it was the light in the darkness, with craziness all around, madness all around. There was a little oasis of love. Well, I can do that. You can do that. Ethan's wisdom, his response to me when I asked him, and it's in my book, You Just Have to Love Me, that was the pinnacle. When I said to him in that conversation in which I spoke my questions and he could only type his answers, not only, he did type his answers, but could not speak them. When I said, what can I do to help you on the journey? His response was, you just have to love me, and that is your job. The rest is my job to do. Each human has to stay in our lane and not try to control other people, but in fact, through our own behavior, through what we say and what we do, model and be the change that we want to see. If we want less violence, more love, well, you know what? In my everyday life, that's what I need to choose. And that's actually very good news, because that's empowering. Instead of feeling like a helpless victim in the face of all this stuff going on and the hate, and you turn on the news and you're bombarded with all these messages, something you can do is say, how can I be peaceful today? How can I love myself today? How can I love my child today? How can I love my neighbor today? How can I love my neighbor as myself today, right now? What would that look like? And it might be just focusing on something wonderful, like the image of the two groups, black and white, and it didn't even matter, blessing each other in prayer under the sight of the one God. And in that moment, doing exactly what God wants us to do. And this is not about religion specifically, or this is about what drives the universe, by any name, whatever name you choose to use. I say God, but you use whatever you wish. Nature, divine intelligence, integrity, truth, love, hope, whatever is your guiding principle. When we choose to look at that, that will guide us in every day, in the day-to-day, in the most practical decision. Because if every decision is about, do I love or do I not love, it helps in that moment to guide whatever it is. The choice of what to eat, the choice of what to say, the choice of what to do, the choice of what to read, everything. So to bring it back to that vulnerability and viewing world events through the autism lens, and my guidance for autism moms, and how can we learn from everything happening to make our own autism path easier. I have found, and I've been hanging on to this all week, last 2 weeks now, when I feel vulnerable, think about, what can I do right now? Because the only way to create the future that I want, that peaceful, protective, amazing future for Ethan and all our kids that I am determined to create, I can't create that future of love and peace and protection if I'm coming from fear, if I'm coming from lack, if I'm coming from, oh no, worry. That is not the soil to create what I want. So when I'm feeling vulnerable, think about what can I do in this moment? Because the smallest step that I take today, coming from love, is the best thing I can do to create that protective, wonderful future for him. And root practical action every day in that guiding principle. And I will feel less vulnerable. I do feel less vulnerable. And I remind myself that this too shall pass. So may I hang on to the learning and let go of the rest that doesn't serve me. I invite you to do the same. I'd love to continue this conversation with you. Please like Bomb Spectrum Oasis, buy my book, You Just Have to Love Me, on Amazon. And let's talk again soon and continue the conversation. Till then, all the best.